Welcome to Talent Freaks with Andy Kuhn. I'm Andy, a filmmaker and photographer based in the Bay Area of California. This podcast delves into the journeys of creative individuals who inspire curiosity and impact through their work. In this episode, we're revisiting a conversation from 2019 with Michael Vignola, a talented music composer known for his captivating scores for films, TV shows, commercials, and web series. Michael's music transports listeners to new realms, evoking vivid imagery and deep emotions. Our conversation explores his journey into music, his creative process, and the challenges and triumphs of pushing a career in composition. Before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe and rate Talent Freaks on your favorite podcast platform. It helps others discover these inspiring stories, and I'm incredibly grateful for it. And one of the cool things that I did for this episode, since I interviewed a musician, the whole episode is with his music to kind of score it. I think it played really well. So enjoy this episode. Let's go back to 2019 with a freshly new Californian kid. All right. California, late 40s. To introduce Michael Vignola, who is a music composer, scores films, TV shows, short films, commercials, anything, even web series. So Michael reached out to me when I was doing Live in the Streets. It wasn't because of that series, it was because he is Vignola. This is what he does. He reaches out to filmmakers and offers his service. And we collaborated right off the bat, and he helped me master all the music in my web series. And I was very grateful for that help because I am terrible about that. And he was there, and I've been following him ever since. I'm so happy to have this conversation and share with you. So I introduce Michael Vignola, or I like to call him Vigs. Well, good morning, afternoon, and thanks for joining me for this podcast.
Yeah, man. Good to be here.
Awesome. So one of the things I used to do, I used to have a podcast where I'd talk, to all my friends who are in the industry that I respect and that I enjoy working with. Right. And it was called Conversations with Kuhn, and it was just like a back and forth kind of flow, ebb and flow. There's no set questions as far as what's your favorite color, those kind of things. One of the most interesting things I found about you was how you reached out to me when we first connected. Mm-hmm. And you hit me up on, was it Facebook or LinkedIn? Probably
Facebook, I think, yeah.
And then I listened to your music and I was hooked right away. The last 5 to 7 years, maybe 10 years, I've been listening to a lot of atmospheric instrumental music that are more cinematic, and it just gives me so much creativity and joy to listen to it. It takes me out of everything. And yeah. I always hear that when people go, I go to the movies so I don't have to, so it's like fantasy driven, and that's what your music does in my head. It gives me visuals, it gives me peace. I could see clouds, I could see traveling, flying, all these really intense emotions that are just, I say intense and I'm about to say calming, but that's the way my brain works.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
And I was excited when you reached out to me. I was just like, this is cool. Always, anytime I meet someone creative, I think the best case scenario, there's no limitations, but I realize real life, there are tons of limitations that we have to work through. So I'm grateful that you reached out to me and we got connected and you helped me with Live in the Streets. But tell me a little bit more about yourself. How did I know? I see in Facebook, that's what I love about Facebook, is following you. I saw some of your past pictures in bands. So just tell me more about your past and your love for music.
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, ever since I can remember, I was always drawn to music as a kid. I remember this little electric organ that used to be down in my grandparents' basement. I was always kind of drawn to and play on when I was little, and it just kind of evolved from there. I would I would just, play around with sounds, and I really played by ear, and I was writing my own kind of I was writing my own stuff, at a very young age, just kind of experimenting, and I started taking formal piano lessons when I was around, I think, 10, and I was also playing sports too. And then I focused on, my father was kind of a person who was like, why are you doing this? You're not going to make any money with music. He used to always tell me. And as a young kid, I guess I kind of, it stuck in my head a little, and I focused on sports, but I always had the music going on. And,
But what kind of music was it?
Oh, at the very beginning, it kind of was like Michael Jackson, like when I was a kid.
Of course.
Like Michael Jackson, like that kind of stuff. And then it evolved into, from there, as I got into my teenage years, it evolved into Pantera, Metallica, all the heavy metal bands, I used to listen to, and then from there, it evolved from metal into like indie rock, kind of indie stuff. And I used to listen to a lot of bands like Thrice, Glassjaw. I don't know if you ever heard of those guys. Coheed and Cambria. But yeah, it's just always something I was always playing, and I always felt that music, the formal, like learning formally, I didn't really want to do. I preferred learning by ear. I felt it was a little too constricting. That way I couldn't experiment on how I wanted to. I wanted to learn what I was interested in, more than just learning like Deck the Halls or on the piano or something, or so I just wanted to spend time writing, kind of like I always in my own way, and learning instrument in my own way, not someone else's, not the way someone else teaches you how to do something. That was kind of, and I'm always open, and I took lessons here and there, and I'd read books and some instructional things and exercises, and I do all that kind of stuff as well. Started playing guitar when I was 15, and that's when I really started kind of like the band era. I was like playing for probably over 10 years out in shows all around Manhattan, New York City, surrounding areas, Connecticut. Went on tour, went on the Vans Warped Tour with my band, and that was a lot of fun. That was a fun experience. So yeah, music's always been a big part of my life, a very important part of my life. And I think, my father and still is, he's still a contractor, doing home remodeling. And he just, it was his plan to have his kids kind of like run the, in the business and learn the business. And I did. And very early on, I was like, Dad, I don't want to do this anymore. I can't. And I was probably like,
you're talking about music you didn't want to do?
No, like my father with construction.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I was like, he's like, I need you. I was like, all right. So I stuck it out with him for about 12 years. Wow. And it just, it wasn't easy, because it was, you ever see, best way I could describe it, I mean, we have a great relationship. We talk, we always talk things out. But if you could think of like American Chopper, if you ever watched that show.
Oh yeah.
Like the dynamic between the father and son was pretty much to the T of me and my father at work,
Wow.
Yeah, that's pretty much like almost very similar, that kind of work relationship. But it didn't get as bad as they got, I actually eventually wound up, not working with him anymore and started my own business. And always having that thing in my head about music, that, always when I was a kid, when I was being told, what are you going to do? You can't make any money doing this kind of thing. And I was never really approved. My father never really approved it, but my mother was always encouraging. So I had that, so it was like that double-edged thing, as a kid, your father's, means a lot to you, what he has to say. So you kind of get these fixed beliefs in your head about what's possible.
Oh, yeah.
So I felt like for a long time I was living somebody else's life, and And then I was always writing. I was after work. I would always, I was playing in bands, writing music, and I was always that was my life.
I want to go back before you carry on. I want to go back to when you said it all started in your grandparents' basement.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like what kind of equipment or what kind of like creativity? Because I know as a kid, like the world is so amazing when you're a kid because everything is unexplored and eventually somebody else has to tell you what it is. But what was down in the basement that actually grabbed your attention?
It was that electric organ. They also had a upright piano upstairs as well. And my grandfather was always, he was always singing. He had a really nice voice, and I think that's where it comes from for me. But I was just always drawn to that electric organ in the basement, and I would just play around with it. Yeah.
I was gonna say, I'm just glad they had that and not like some kind of, like a typical basement that's murky and dirty. So it's like, where would you be today?
Right. Yeah. So I was always drawn to that, and I don't know. It's just something that's always been a part of me. I feel I was always interested in just I took in a school band. I played clarinet. I did that for a little while. But now I'm just kind of back at it with just kind of. I felt like even being in a band wasn't an exact. I thought that's what I wanted to do, was be in a band and tour, and I find that what I'm doing now is more. I'm going back to my roots, because I used to listen to, going to sleep when I was a kid. I used to listen to like orchestral music on the radio and go to sleep to it, like just on my own accord, and I used to love visualizing myself kind of conducting these symphonies and things like that too,
Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
And so when you transitioned, you went from construction and you're like, I want to do this myself.
Yeah.
Like, what was that transition like? Were you still doing this while you're doing construction, kind of getting things,
yes,
geared up?
Yeah, I was basically like, I can do this to help me with my music career, and that's really the wrong way to look at things. I'll be able to get some money together to get some equipment, or, I was always building up my the stuff I had, and just learning, and I thought that would be. It was just the reverse. It was the wrong way to. Now I see it was the wrong way to think, because it was like, I thought I would be able to get these things by starting my own business in construction, when because it's all I did. It's all I knew, when it came to when I was in bands, we barely made any money. You'd get only, we were playing a lot of big shows. We played with a lot of great, well-known bands in Manhattan, and you get like $2 a head, or and it's just not that much in it. So the only way I was looking at it at the time was, I'll do this, and I can build up my music stuff, and I just wasn't the right way to look at it. I see now,
Yeah. So tell me about the area you grew up with, because I grew up in Montclair, New Jersey.
Yeah.
And so I know you're from the tri-state area.
Yeah.
But tell me more about like the area and how that influences you even more.
Yeah, I grew up in Staten Island, New York, Midland Beach. I 3 blocks from the water, from the ocean. And it was a great place to grow up. I grew up on a dead-end street, so we ride our bikes. We're right by a park, Miller Field, and we'd ride our bikes up and down, and it was just a lot of fun growing up around there. Yeah, and I met people that were into music as well, and I kind of like evolved from there, and I got to know people in the music scene, and just kind of started collaborating with them, Mm-hmm.
It's interesting growing up in that area. I remember as a kid, my parents used to take us into go see museums and plays all the time. But also as a kid, when they were watching the news, all I remember was like violence and killings, and so every time they took us into the city, I was scared. I thought we were going to die. And like, no one explained that to me, you know, as a kid going
Right.
like, we're going into this dangerous city. But every time we go in, we had so much fun.
Right.
And kind of like you're saying about sports. I grew up, that's all I wanted to do was play sports.
Right.
And my parents, all they wanted to do was to shove me into arts.
Right.
And so I kind of rebelled. I guess I didn't rebel. I just wanted to do what I wanted to do.
Right.
But kind of like you, what you're saying about your parents, my parents were always like, they were both teachers. They were artists, but they were both, one's a professor, one was a high school teacher. And they were telling me like, you need to get a good job, like teaching. And they were very fortunate because they're grandfathered into, you know, all the pensions and all the great things about being a state employee.
Right.
Where that is not the case anymore. And it's
Right.
just, it's an amazing transition in our time where it's just like, oh no, wait a minute. We have to all do this on our, you know, from ourselves. But I don't know why I digressed into that. I think it's because it's early and the coffee hasn't hit me yet.
Right.
No, but it's
yeah.
also kind of a connection that I can relate to.
Yeah, I think that's like you know, I have a young daughter and she's 7, and for me, I feel like I feel it's my obligation just to kind of encourage her interest and not force any of what I want her to do in life. Like, you should do this, you should do that. I'm not going to be that. I don't want to be that person, because for me, I just don't. You know, from my experience, I don't feel it's helpful. In ways, I think a kid, if you're going to rate your responsibility as a parent, for me, is to encourage their interest and nurture those interests, and that's it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, to an
it's
extent,
funny you
yeah.
mention that, because I hear when people tell me you should, it shuts me down, like as an adult when I hear
Right,
that. And I
right.
think it's because of growing up as a kid. I was in Santa Barbara, and I was staying at this house, and when the people came back, they're like, let's have dinner. And I was like, great. And instead of going like, hey, there's this great restaurant, you know, suggests going here, they're like, you should do this. You should do this. You should. And I started shutting down, like right in front of them. It was the weirdest thing. And I'm very self-aware. So I'm like, why am I doing this? Is that because as a kid, you know, hearing my parents keep telling me you should do this and you should do that. So
yeah.
I'm in a weird stage of my life where I'm like very aware of everything and how I react and why am I going through this. But it's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it's certainly exciting times, I think, you know, because I really made a decision to just kind of go for it, because, you know, you only have this one life, you don't know what's going to happen, and I feel like you really need to just, because, you know, for such a long time I felt I was living somebody else's life, and I don't want to do that, you know, and I don't want that for my kid either, you know.
And that's amazing that you have that attitude with a family. It's one of the things where everyone's just like, you have to, you know, stray that line, and I think that's where we get trapped in society, where people don't do what they love or attempt things because they're afraid, if I fail, then my family, we're not going to have a job or anything else. We're not going to make it.
Right, and that has been the case where we've been homeless. I was homeless. We were homeless as a family for over a year. You know, just because of what we're decided to do as a family, and just to show our daughter that to follow your dreams and to follow, you know, live by example more than anything else. And, you know, and there was a point where we were living apart too, because we wanted her to, we were staying in Staten Island with family, you know, a little over a year and a half ago, a little more than that. So
that you just blew my mind by saying what you just said, because I think that's amazing that you're able to continue. And on the outside, you know, looking at your Facebook and, you know, contacting you, see all the work you've done, no one would ever guess that.
Right. Yeah. I try not to share too much of what's going on, you know. I want to be a positive. I want to be a positive influence. I want to leave the world better off than I you know, I left it, you know what I mean? So
I'll tell you what, you're definitely leaving filmmakers better off than before they met you. I know that just from the experience.
Thank you.
And also, I find it amazing. You're so deep at what you do. It's not just about music, but also it's about design. Because almost every song that you put out there is like you have this beautiful image behind it that's very well crafted, as far as like, you know, typography, but also the design behind it. And I think that your music definitely influences what you put out there as well. It's like a 3-tiered system. It's like you have this design, you have your music, and then you have a visual that goes with it.
Yeah, I feel branding is super important when it comes to drawing in the right people that you're gonna potentially work with. I feel like that's very important. So I really take a lot of time into finding the right images, manipulating them and using them with music, just to kind of draw the audience in, then they can make the decision if they like it or not.
And it's cool to see that you have 4 mutual friends with me, and one of like Jason Buterin, Christopher Moore, William Helmuth, and Lindsay Holler. Obviously, I know with Lindsay, but how did you reach out to the other guys, the filmmakers? Yeah,
so I'll take my time, and if I see somebody that I really see what they're doing, what they're posting, what how involved are they in the process, and I really take the time. I don't just reach out to anybody, and then I'll reach out, go, hey, I really like what you're doing. I'm a film composer based, in New York City area. And I just started following them and supporting the guys that I feel, are genuinely, looking to do what I'm doing, in a sense, and just being proactive in the industry,
Yeah, and it's quite amazing sitting back and watching your social media presence, because I know you're on LinkedIn, I know you're on Facebook, but and all the different entertainment people that you have on there, actors, filmmakers. I don't know if you have other musicians on there. Do you?
I do. I have a couple. Yeah.
Is there anybody out there that it really influences you as far as what you're doing?
I would say I would say artists now, like composers that are out now, that are stylistically similar to, I would say, is Max Richter, Olaf Arnolds, those guys, and a few other, Johan Johansson, which I really like. I really love his stuff. It's very similar to what I do, which I find eerie, kind of weird. It's like, I've been compared to composers I've never heard of, so I think there's also I think because we all come from a similar place, and I think when we, and there's always going to be similarities. I think that there's also going to be some very, big differences at the same time, on how we approach things. So I mean, those are the guys I would say that I'm really enjoy their work. Yeah.
So how has social media not just influenced you, but benefited you by doing what you're doing?
Oh, it's benefited me tremendously. I think all the work I've gotten has been through Facebook and social media. So it's been a big stepping stone for me. And, I feel like, I have to now, I'm trying to branch out more now and just get in front of people more, which I just got one of my the music video for Daydreamer is going into the Garden State Film Festival. So
congratulations.
Thank you.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it's a pretty big film festival. It's like over 20. They're expecting over 20,000 people to be there over the few days. It's a pretty big, one of the biggest ones on the East Coast. So I'm excited about that. I believe the film commissioner wants to meet with me there, and he wants to have a conversation. Cool. So that's cool. So yeah, getting in front of people is the next step for me,
Definitely. And that was the one thing when we won Vimeo's Best Web Series back in 2012, went out to Vimeo and just met some amazing people in our industry. And I think, just not only doing what we do on this side and then doing it because we're passionate, we love it, we want to keep moving, but we have to get from behind our computers because it's comfortable, it's safe, by posting and connecting online. But the hard part is getting out there, hitting the streets, and actually making face-to-face connections with people.
Right.
And I think that's very important. Right. And I just absolutely love what you're doing, and all the music you put out there, the visuals to it, and your constant. Every time you put out music, I just sit back and listen to it, and it's like peace for me. So
Thank
I
you.
really appreciate your music and what you do.
I also love the work that you do too. I love your take on things. The little project that we did that I helped you with, I thought it was really brilliant and just a different take on I just love your insight on and your expression for sure.
Thanks, Vigs.
Yeah.
I don't know. You probably get the same way, and I think I have some kind of defect where there's a part of me where either I take on too much or I don't know how to either manage or really kind of do social media like you do, where it's like I do it, I shoot it, I edit it, I put it up, and then when you don't get that response, you're like, fuck it. You know, it's
yeah. It could be discouraging.
It's hard.
Yeah.
It's not only discouraging, but then, so for Live in the Streets, what you're talking about, when I left Charleston, I got this second kick in my pants when I moved to Naples, Florida for about a month, because I started work with another company that was going to move me to Santa Barbara.
Right.
But I had to be in Naples for a month, which was just miserable. That place sucks. I was there and I'm like, just kind of losing it. I didn't feel it. I was away from all my friends and everything else, and man, I felt just out of it. And then they're like, hey, we could fly you out to Santa Barbara. I'm like, I'm not putting my dog underneath the plane. I'm not doing that. She's 11.
Right.
So I said, I'm gonna go across country. They gave me a week to do that, which I was very grateful for.
Cool.
And so when I did, I was just like, hey, why don't I go stop through all these towns and do a Live in the Streets in these cities while I'm traveling.
Right.
And man, I had no idea how hard that is.
Yeah.
I set up two musicians in each place I was doing, and I only did 3. The first 3 I went through. Mm-hmm. And it was funny. Every state or every city I stopped in, one person backed out. So it was good. It worked out perfectly.
Right.
But by the time I left Kansas City, I was done.
Right.
Like I just wanted to be in California.
Right.
I was exoxhausted.
Right.
I had all this adrenaline from getting there, then shooting, and then by the time I finished, I'd go to my Airbnb and just pass out.
Right.
Like it was just exhausting. But there was all this energy, and then I moved out to Santa Barbara, and man, I got depressed like you would not believe.
Yeah.
But not only that, but also the community I left in Charleston. Like these are things that I went through when I first moved to Charleston, but I moved from 4 hours away.
Right.
So it wasn't a big deal. And then I'm across country. I'm like, oh shit, what am I doing here?
Right.
I got a better job. I'm making more money, but I feel empty.
Right.
And I know, I already know life is not about money. It's
Right.
not about that. It's about, connections and serving people and just, building community.
Right.
Now I'm in California, I'm in San Jose, San Francisco, Oakland, all these amazing cities.
Right.
That, my God, the talent here must be just amazing to go out there and start doing it. So I am starting to get that little push again.
Right.
And I gave myself a month just to kind of settle, get myself situated, and then start going out,
right,
meeting musicians, and then picking it up again. But one of those reasons I said all that was because of when I go back online and I see your profile and how you are not, you never stop.
Yeah.
And I see the progression, I see the growth, I see all these, I see and even talking with you, underneath, you're going like, yeah, I don't have time for this. And I know, and what I asked from you, I was so grateful that you offered to help me. But I also know there's a professional aspect of your business and your life. And that's something I wish, I think everybody's like this. I don't know. Like, I wish I could take all these talented people that I know and just be like, boom, just go big.
Yeah.
And that's like the major goal for everyone.
Yeah, I think it's important to, for me, like you said, it's not all about the money, but it really isn't, because for me, it's about getting involved with the right people and growing with them and building up with those people. I think is really important as well, because I do take on projects that right now that Holly Panning thing, just because I love what they're doing and I love what they're about, and I think that's really important. Especially, I think throughout your career. I think it's very important just to find the right people that you really click with, and not just look for the next. I've turned down plenty of work would have paid very well, and I turned it down because it wasn't the right fit. I'm really playing the long game rather than the short game. That's what I'm really trying to do. And yes, it's a little, that would be nice. I can, but yeah, at the same time, I have to also be careful on what I'm getting involved with.
You don't tell your wife that. You're like, I just turned down this big gig.
No, I tell her. Yeah, she knows. She's very supportive. She's very supportive.
No kidding.
I'm very lucky. Yeah,
you're very lucky, and I that's awesome to have a partner with you that just supports you and pushes you. And you're right, because your example is your daughter's gonna see that and just be like, it's hard work. It's a lot of time away, but it's also dedication and.
Yeah,
I just absolutely dig you, man, and
Thanks,
talking with you today and just looking at your stuff, and even our little Facebook back and forth messages, having fun with politics and other things.
Yeah,
just I can tell the kind of person that you are.
Yeah,
so it's fun. I'm really glad to get to know you as a person too.
Yeah, same here, man. Yep.
So one last thing I want to kind of dig into is about the equipment and. I guess, when people get started, they're like, what equipment? And I hear this all the time with video. It's like, what are you shooting with? What Kodak? And it's just, for me, it's not about that. Me, it's content.
Right.
But if you get any kind of professional camera these days, they'll do a good job.
Oh, yeah.
But I think audio is huge in my world. And also music is very emotional and tying to it.
Right.
And for you, what would you say is the most important thing about the music that you do?
Sure. Yeah, I think for audio, I think it's super important that, nowadays it's like you can spend a couple $100 and you can make stuff sound very, top notch, very professional now, than it was when I was recording my bands when it was like the 001, the Digi 001, and it just sounded horrible. Just whatever went through it. We got some pretty good sounds, but nowadays it's amazing what you can just spend a few $100s on and really get started. So I think the belief that people need the best equipment is, like you said, is it's more about the content, and the equipment's just so good now. The technology is so great that it's just amazing what you could put out. So yeah, I use Pro Tools for my interface. For my DAW, my digital audio workstation. I'm using an ID22 interface, which is the Audient ID22. It's only like I think it's like $500-$600. Just a small little stuff, and it's really a fantastic piece of equipment. So I can record small orchestras, orchestral. Quartets and everything like that, and just it's very. I got it because you can evolve, can grow with it. So that's what I use there, and I use a lot of virtual instruments right now.
Yeah,
and just I think taking the time to find what you're really drawn to and what you like, and making those investments, I think is important.
One of the things that blows me away is the quality of music that you put out there. So I have friends, and I've listened to a lot of music online where it sounds synthesized, like it sounds like canned, hollowness from the music. Right. And I'm like, how do you do that? How do yours make it sound like you do have a symphony?
That's a wonderful question. I don't know. I've been doing this. I've been doing this a long time. I used to intern at a recording studio. I used to record bands. I started this little side thing called Nomad Studios, where I would go record bands for their albums, and I recorded my own band. So I have a lot of recording engineering experience, mixing experience. So just I think your ear just grows over time and develops. So I've been doing this a long time. So I think that's experience is where it comes from, and just taking the time to really listen and know, frequency ranges and certain instruments, what frequency ranges are they in, so they another instrument's not going to fight that frequency range to make things sound muddy, or so it's just separating all that stuff and knowing where to place it.
You're right about that. That's something I'm like, like when I think I was talking to you or somebody else about frequency to take out.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know how to do that. And I know there are plenty of tutorials telling me, and it just, my brain is like, no.
Yeah. Yeah.
But also, how many layers or tracks do you have on a typical score?
Oh, forget it. If it's a feature film that's like an hour and a half long, 2 hours long, it's like almost over 100 tracks of just different stuff. Yeah. It's like a lot of stuff, you know.
Where do you get most of your instruments? Is it mostly?
Yeah, well, I use 8DO is a company I like to use. Spitfire is really amazing. Virtual instrument companies, and depending on the budget, I would track. I would track analog as well, depending on what the production has. So I would write the mock-ups, and then we would retrack it, or we would keep the mock-up because of the budget and just use the mock-up. So that's always challenging, but these companies are doing such an amazing job with sampling these instruments. So it does a lot. It does help a lot for lower budget projects.
So what are the kind of instruments that you use typically?
Yeah, I use. I like to use a lot of. I'm always looking for good sampled pianos. I use a lot. I like a lot of pads, synth pads. I'm really like ambient kind of stuff. Imperial Audio is a really good company for that kind of stuff. I really enjoy their stuff. And that's orchestral stuff. I use a lot of 8DO orchestral music. I use a lot of solo East-West. I use a lot of their solo instruments for East-West, which I really like. It's hard to find a good solo instrument, a virtual instrument that you're looking for. Just to start, I would prefer to retrack with real players or real soloists, but it always comes down to budget for these productions. So we do the best we can. Yeah. But yeah, I would say those are my main things I like.
I think it's so cool, and the more filmmakers you work with at that different level, that tier that they're going out there starting to, they might have short films, but they're on track to make the feature films with studios or something like that. And right. I know that's the kind of growth. It's just like what got us here. And I know the music is a big part of that. So right. I'm hoping, that, someone's just like, hey, Vigs, come on, let's go. Here's an orchestra. Like, what would that mean to you if they're like, hey, here's this orchestra?
Oh, that would be amazing to have the opportunity to work with an orchestra and do all those things for sure. Yeah.
Would that take you back as like a kid? You're like, this is what I fell asleep to, and now I'm here.
Yeah, it would. It would be like full circle for sure. Right?
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. So I think, I just think it's just taking things a little at a time, and I know it's definitely a challenging, to just keep that positive energy when things are, there is some kind of positive. I think it's just important just to keep that mindset, no matter what's going on.
So where do you get your peace? Like when you take yourself out of the studio, mm-hmm. like how do you get your downtime?
Sure. Yeah, I meditate. I like to meditate. Listen to meditation music a lot. Spending time with the family, super important. That's where I kind of decompress. Mm-hmm.
Good. That's something that I've on my end out here. I'm starting to volunteer a little bit. I'm trying to get my dog into a therapy. Right. So she's going to go. We're going to go into a hospice home and do some therapy sessions with some people.
That's cool.
And around here it's just like hiking.
Yeah.
Just getting out and getting into nature, and it's not too cold, not too hot.
Right. So yeah, I gotta start.
Plenty of that time.
I gotta start doing that more. I gotta start going for. I was doing it for a little while. I'll stop and start. I'll go for walks. I'll do that as well. Get out, because you're in. A lot of people talk about composers. They don't like to go out. It's kind of true, because you're in here writing all day. But it's important. I agree to get out and get out into the nature and just kind of. That's a great way to to decompress too.
How do people find you? And, do you have music out there that people can buy, like albums and individual tracks?
I do. I just released. I'm on all the major digital platforms: Spotify, iTunes. All those guys. I just released my first album in December called A Place Between Time. So that's just out. You can find my stuff on there. I'll be constantly releasing stuff on that. So. I'm getting my next release is going to be an ambient release. It's a 10-minute track called Transforming. That's coming out February 1st on Spotify, iTunes, all that. You can find a lot of my stuff. I have a playlist page with everything I write. I just post it up on there, and that's on my website, vignolamusic.com. You can find a lot of stuff there. You can find how to reach me through there. I make everything as easy as possible for people to get in touch with me. If they're interested.
Well, cool, Mike. I don't want to take any more of your time, but I appreciate you spending time with me and talking. And anytime you want to just hang out or talk or shoot the shit, just please hit me up.
Yeah, definitely. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk with me, for sure. Thank you.
Awesome, Mike.
Thank you.
And best of luck to you with everything that you're doing.
Thanks. Yeah, we'll see how it goes. Gotta keep going, right?
So, that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
I'd like to thank my boy Vigs for joining me in this conversation. I hope you enjoyed Michael Vignola and his music. And this was a first for me. I incorporated his music in the podcast underneath some of our conversations, just so you can get a good idea of the energy, the beauty, and his talents. So I'm really happy with the results, and I'm grateful that he joined me. So if you want to learn more about Vignola and his music, go to www.vignolamusic.com. That's VIGNOLA music.com. I'll leave a link in there. And come back for more conversations with some more talent freaks. They might be artists, photographers, filmmakers, musicians, designers, who knows? But check out talentfreaks.com for more information, or download it at your Apple Store or Google Play or wherever you get your podcasts from. Thanks for checking out Talent Freaks. Since our 2019 conversation, I'm so excited for Vigs. He's continued to thrive as a film composer and sound designer, expanding his creative portfolio and founding Emergence Audio, a company dedicated to crafting cinematic and ambient music for films, TV shows, video games, and other media. Michael has composed music for commercials, documentaries, independent films with powerful emotional resonance. He has also released albums such as Transforming and A Place Between Time. His music combines ethereal soundscapes with sumptuous orchestral arrangements. It can be found on sites such as iTunes and Spotify. I've also found some of his work on artlist.io, and I'm so excited to see it on there. He uses state-of-the-art technology and a collaborative mindset. Michael augments narratives through audio post-production, sound design, and original composition through Emergence Audio. Aspiring composers can find him mentoring them and attending his workshops, as he has also dabbled in teaching. Michael, on the other hand, has managed to flourish professionally while still making time for his family, meditating, pursuing his passions. He is an inspiration through his music. And you can find out more about his adventures at vignolamusic.com and emergenceaudio.com. Check in the description below for all his social media handles. I've already had a conversation with Michael offline, and it looks like we're going to update his conversation. So excited to hear firsthand about his challenges, but also his successes and where his mindset is at today. So I hope you enjoyed getting to know Michael Vignola. Until next time, keep exploring, keep creating, and stay curious.